Welcome to This Week in History. I'm Tyler Boeh, and this is the old news. October 19th. In 1885, Charles Merrill, co-founder of Merrill Lynch, was born when his mother went to the doctor and said she'd like to make a withdrawal. Founded in 1914, Merrill Lynch is one of the oldest investment companies in America. If you had opened an account with them in 1914 with just $1, by 2020, you'd be dead. Super dead. In 1914, an automobile was first used by the United States Postal Service to pick up and deliver the mail in Washington, D.C. And nobody was more disappointed than the ponies. In 1960, 52 individuals, including Martin Luther King Jr., were arrested at a sit-in in a downtown Atlanta lunch counter. Under the heavily enforced Jim Crow segregation laws at the time, black and white people were required to use different bathrooms, different water fountains, different ticket booths, and in many cases black people were refused service entirely. But please, old people, tell us again how you're the greatest generation. October 20th. In 1803, the U.S. Senate approves the Louisiana Purchase. The U.S. effectively doubled its land with the 828,000 square miles of Louisiana territory it gets from the French. And we got a real deal, too, at $15 million. That works out to about $18 a square mile, which is crazy because you couldn't put hardwood floors in your house today for $18 a square foot. How is it that cheap? I don't know. Maybe France was underwater on their investment. Not financially. I mean, like literally. I think a lot of Louisiana was underwater. Also, there was Native Americans living on a lot of that land. So that's a lot like selling your neighbor's house while they're still in it. France was like, hey, America, we'll give you a great deal, but you might have to kill some people or run them out of town. And America was like, we're fine with that. In 1962, Peter, Paul, and Mary's debut album hit #1 on U.S. charts. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, they said. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry's going to hear this thing morning, noon, and night. In 1973, President Richard Nixon fires Watergate accuser Archibald Cox. Who would do such a thing? In 1998, Richard Pryor was awarded the first Mark Twain Prize for American humor. Pryor was a great first recipient for this award because he and Mark Twain had a lot in common. They were both funny, incredibly intelligent, prolific writers, and neither were shy about using the N-word. October 21st. In 1833, Alfred Nobel was born. Alfred is best known as the benefactor of the Nobel Prize, but his life's work was dedicated to the development and sale of armaments, including his most famous invention, dynamite. He invented dynamite in 1867, and the powerful explosive was primarily intended for use in mining, but it did become a standard ending for Looney Tunes cartoons and also gave us one of the greatest catchphrases in television history. So how does a man who spent his entire life creating destruction become one of the greatest philanthropists in the world? Bad reporting. In 1888, Alfred's brother Ludwig passed away, and a French newspaper, mistaking him for Alfred, reported that the Merchant of Death had finally died, and they said he spent his entire life thinking up more efficient ways to kill people. Normally obituaries are full of nice things about you, but it sounds like he basically got roasted. So upon reading this, Alfred realized he wanted more for his legacy, and having no wife or children, he dedicated 94% of his fortune to establish the 5 Nobel Prizes. And if you've ever seen the Nobel Prize Award, it's a gold medal with a big picture of Alfred's face on it. So this feels a little less like a selfless act of charity and a bit more like a last-ditch effort at rebranding. In 1858, the can-can was performed for the first time in Paris, France. The French wouldn't see that many high kicks again until the Germans came goose-stepping in 1940. In 1879, Edison made a major advancement in the filament for his incandescent bulb. It lasted an unprecedented 13 hours before burning out. But at that rate, not even Motel 6 would leave the light on. In 1928, Baseball Hall of Fame pitcher Whitey Ford was born. What kind of name is that? It was like the most generically American name. Unless, of course, there's somebody named Pasty Buick or Honky Chrysler. October 22nd. In 1797, André Jacques Garnerin made the first parachute jump. He tested his contraption by jumping out of a hydrogen balloon 3,200 feet above Paris. I don't know. I think I would have maybe gone a little bit lower on that first test jump, but cheers to him for really going for it. In 1990, child star Jonathan Lipnicki was born, and his human head weighed 8 pounds. October 23rd. This day in history in 1944 marks the beginning of the Battle of Leyte Gulf. This fight between Japan and the US over control of the Philippines was the largest naval battle in World War II and often considered the largest naval battle in history. Despite the fact that the Imperial Japanese Navy had two of the largest battleships ever built with superior cannons, American forces were able to secure victory by using the famous military tactic E4. This battle was incredibly brutal. At least 44 ships were sunk, over 500 airplanes were destroyed, and it cost about 15,000 lives between Japanese and US soldiers. And somehow, the folks at Milton Bradley were like, "Game night! This looks like fun for the whole family." In 1954, director Ang Lee was born. Critics described his birth as long and emotional, but visually stunning. 4 stars. In 1981, the US national debt hits $1 trillion. Aww, our first trillion. So cute. Look at our debt now, it's all grown up. October 24th. In 1836, Alonzo Phillips patents the phosphorus friction safety match in hopes of striking it rich. And what an innovator, this guy. Since the beginning of time, humans have been making fire by rubbing 2 sticks together. This guy comes along and is like, I can do that with 1. October 25th. In 1887, Emma Grandma Gatewood was born. She was a pioneer in the world of ultralight hiking, and at the age of 63 became the first woman to hike the entire Appalachian Trail solo. She did the 2,190-mile journey in a pair of Ked sneakers with just an army blanket, a raincoat, and a plastic shower curtain that she used as a tent, which is crazy. I went out of town for the weekend and I took like 3 pairs of shoes and 2 bags. Gatewood went on to hike the trail 2 more times, becoming the only person to complete the trek 3 times. Man, I would love to walk a mile in her shoes, but just like 1. In 1929, Albert Fall, a member of President Harding's cabinet, was found guilty of bribery. He was given a 1-year prison sentence and a $100,000 fine, because in 1929, bribery was considered a felony. Today, it's called lobbying. In 1870, the first U.S. trademark was given to the Averill Chemical Paint Company. In a way, they trademarked the trademark. In 1948, wrestling legend and Olympic gold medalist Dan Gable was born. When he was born, his parents put him in a onesie, and he never took it off. In 1954, a U.S. cabinet meeting was televised for the first time. Despite low ratings on its debut episode, predictable writing, and uninspired characters, the show continues to be renewed year after year, although 2020 looks like it could be a season finale. That's it for this week in history. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check back next week when I'll be cracking more jokes about dead people and old stuff.